Bad idea, with the ever-growing sense of fear increasing in him. As he whimpered out a timid, "Hello," some footsteps scuttled behind him. He turned suddenly to see nothing but darkness in front of him. He called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Then came a response from the thick blackness, only the shadows of the night. Stunned, Sonic crept closer into the dark as it consumed him away from the dark. Huh? Stunned, Sonic crept closer into the dark as it consumed him away from the dark. Don't you mean light? That makes no sense. He's going into the dark and it's bringing him away from the dark. So is one dark darker than the other dark? I think he meant to say light. As he continued in, a figure appeared before him. He was a hedgehog like him, but with fur so dark it almost blended into the night's colors, except for the red streak on his head. Gee, I wonder who it is. A look into his eyes, and a mix of hate and sadness would be seen. He looked into Sonic's eyes with a sad puppy dog feel as he held his injured leg. Sure enough, before him was his brother Shadow. After many years, Sonic found him at last. "Brother," he said, "I was sprinting from the rooftops from the cops, and unluckily tripped and fell. Only my left leg wasn't heavily injured, but you must help me." "How so?" asked his brother. Okay. Shadow replied, as he carefully rubbed his barely broken leg, "Get me far away from here. Far away as possible, please. I would appreciate it." Okay. He should have had, Shadow say this and then have it say Shadow replied as he carefully rubbed his barely broken leg, because that would make no sense, because that makes more sense than what he did, because he had Shadow reply blah blah blah. Before that, it seems like, the last word spoken, which was really from Sonic, sounded like it was from Shadow. You guys following me? Probably not. Let's continue. Sonic stood there and pondered for a moment. He knew that if he helped him, he would never get the chance to run into him again. He would also be assisting a criminal with charges Okay. Wrong two! He only has one O. You're supposed to have two. 1, 2, 1, 2. Always have two. When you're saying, "I got a way to," have always two O's. If you don't, you will be a bozo. Okay, I'm very sorry for that moment of lameness. Let's continue. One of them being the time he almost raped Sonic's girlfriend. Talk about brotherly love. Sonic knew that he would finally get back at him once and for all, being labeled a hero among heroes for locking up an evildoer behind prison bars. He knew it had to be done. But then, he took another look into the eyes of his brother. He then took another look into his brother's eyes. They were filled with tears and begged for more than help. They were begging for forgiveness. Maybe if he did this, just once, Shadow would show more compassion to him. Perhaps they would put aside their differences and for once become the brothers they should truly be. But what if he didn't? As he began to think, the sounds of sirens in the distance drew close. Shadow, losing hope, pleaded to his unsure brother. "Sonic, I know what I have done in the past was wrong, but what's done is done. Many have tracked me down for the menace they see me as. Please, I beg of you, this once, help me." Sonic said nothing, but looked at him once more. He still wasn't sure about saving his troubled brother. Shadow finally knew his fate was coming. He let out a heavy sigh, and the last thing he said was, "I'm sorry," and lowered his head, thinking of his unforgiven deeds. By then, Sonic finally knew his choice. With the fingers of his right hand, he cautiously lifted his brother's heavy head, looking straight into his eyes, and said with a tear-shedded smile, "All is forgiven." He lifted his brother and quickly ran with him out of the alley. He hurried into his cabin, slipped Shadow into the back seat with haste. No sooner had he entered the driver's side, he knew at last the tension between the two was lifted at last. For the one reason that Sonic hunted down his brother's Shadow was not of punishment, but a request for forgiveness. pleasantly surprised. This story was good. It was very good. A couple of errors I noticed, but that can all be fixed when being published on fanfiction.net. This, folks, writing your story on notebook paper is a good idea, unless you're a crappy author. Author, whatever it is. It says author, whatever. But see, if you write it on notebook paper and have someone read it out loud, they can find the grammar errors. And then, afterwards, when you do decide to post it on the web, you can correct the grammar errors. And then you're all set. Something tells me that most people do not do this when they're writing fanfics. Most people just say, hey, I got an idea. I mean, sometimes the story comes out good, but there's always grammar issues. And they can make the most intelligent writers look retarded. So, writing it on notebook is a good idea. But this story was very well written. I could see, if Sonic and Shadow really were brothers, I could see this happening. I mean, Morgan Ledger is very good, with the settings and stuff. He's really good, very descriptive with his words. And the story wasn't too long either. It was actually a nice quick read. And frankly, I think he should write a sequel to this. I really think he should. And it should be, a sequel about them bonding. Maybe they fight every now and then, but maybe he can write a sequel where they begin to feel love for each other. But this story could also stand alone. It doesn't really need a sequel, but I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel. So, Morgan Ledger has pleased me again. It's always nice, it's very nice and refreshing to read a good fan fiction. It really is. You have no idea what crap I have to put up with. No idea whatsoever. And fanfics like this are a pleasant surprise. Now, I'm not saying that I don't read good fanfics a lot. I do come across a good chunk of them. But the bad ones are the ones that always stand out. But this one was pretty good. So for writers who are watching this review, do what Morgan did and write your fanfic in a notebook. Have one of your peers read it. Hell, if you even want to, photocopy it and send it to me and I'll read it for you and critique it for you. And then just retype it. And best program for retyping fanfics, Microsoft Word. Comes in handy. It doesn't point out all mistakes, but sometimes I notice words that are misspelled that really shouldn't be misspelled. But always have peers check your work. Well, I'm the FanFic Critic. I read it, you listen. I'm going to drink the rest of my soda.